Welcome back to 15 with Fosca, the podcast. My guest today is James Keith, global business leader, philanthropist, educator, artist, musician, commercial pilot, and modern Renaissance man. Jim is the former CEO of two internationally recognized Fortune 500 companies, 7-Eleven and Blockbuster. And I've invited him here today to share his personal story and to talk about his book, Education is Freedom. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
And I am super happy to have you here. We met in Florence, which is not surprising since you are a modern Renaissance man.
One of my favorite places in the world.
And it was one of those encounters that I love and that I talk about all the time on the podcast, because I was chatting with your lovely wife, Margot, and I guess I mentioned that I was an educator, a lifelong educator. And she said, "Oh, you really need to meet my husband." And then you came over, we started chatting, and you were telling me about the book. And then you kindly gifted me the book. And I said, "Would you come on the podcast, on my little podcast, to talk about your book?" And you graciously obliged. So I want to thank you again for that.
Sure. Happy to do it. And our encounter in Florence was very special because you not only are an educator, but you're also engaged with the art community and the church community. And there's, we just had a lot of parallels. And as you know, I'm working on kind of an exciting project with the Vatican and technology. And anyway, it all comes together.
It does all come together. And I want to talk about that later on in the podcast. I want to talk about that project. And I thought we could start today by talking about your personal story, which is really inspiring. And it did give birth to this wonderful book that you've written. And I thought we could just start there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I grew up really, really as a rich kid and went to all the very best schools. And that's right. That'd make a more interesting story, I think.
No, not at all. No, this is much more interesting.
All right. Well, I'll go through the real one. So, I ended up literally grew up without running water, and I know it sounds like Abraham Lincoln or something in a log cabin. wasn't quite that stark, but close. and used education really as the path to be able to carve out a different life than my parents or even my siblings were able to accomplish. And really the aha moment for me was a realization that any of us can do anything we want. But too often the environment frames who we think we are. Wasn't my fault that I was born into that circumstance. It happened, but so I couldn't do anything about the reality of the macro environment, the circumstances. But I had every bit of control over how I reacted to it and how I responded to it. So I just took charge.
Yeah, and that's what comes out obviously in the book. It's your personal journey, but it also, I think, really inspires others to empower themselves through education. And you give great examples throughout the book, not only your own example, but you call on a lot of people that you know, but also a lot of famous people throughout history, and give these great examples that we can use to live our best lives, I would say. I want to quote a passage from the book.
Sure.
And I feel like it's been quoted a lot because it's a really good one. Someone can take your money, your material things, your job, but they can't take away what you know. With knowledge, you can replace anything lost. You can be free to explore the world. You are beholden to no one. Would you comment on that passage a little for us, Jim?
Sure. Yeah. It's something my dad used to say when I was a kid, and I didn't really understand it at the time. You know, when you're 10 years old, it's just an adult, wah, wah, wah. But the word stuck because I remembered my dad being really tied to his machine. And it wasn't about money. And it was never, gee, I wish I was rich. It was, gee, I wish I could be free. I wish I could do the things I want to do and travel the world. Um, but he couldn't because he was, we had 6 kids in the family and he was desperately trying to just keep us alive. And so, yeah, I learned from him that it was really about knowledge. That the more you learn, and this is what he didn't have. He didn't
Yeah.
make it past 6th grade, and he knew that that was his biggest shortfall. It was keeping him trapped and tied to his machine at the factory.
Yeah. And I mean, it's incredible. You talk about your family in the book and you spoke about it also at the beginning of the podcast. And you had this, I would say, this kind of like power within you. And you knew that despite your circumstances, you knew that that was the key to your being what you wanted to be, even if you didn't know it at the time. But you
Sure.
knew that there was something out there and that the only way to really unlock it was through your knowledge. And you've been somebody who's been hungry your whole life to learn, and you still are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's this thing, and I didn't even I've never heard it described like this, but I hear a lot today about agency, and and
Yeah.
and I mentioned that to somebody. I said I've got agency, and they're like, what? Because I hadn't heard of that way of describing it. But basically, it's there's nobody else in charge of your life. Take charge. And the subtitle of my book is "The Future Is in Your Hands." And that was very much by design, because too often I think we let other people tell us who we are, what we can do, what we can't do. And we believe that nonsense from out there, that, well, you're not that smart, you're not that, you know, able, whatever. And yeah, we are.
Yeah. And then we internalize it. And so I think
Yeah,
that agency has become really a buzzword, because I think finally we are, I mean, the new generation, the young generation for sure, has a clearer idea than I think our generations did. But, this notion that you do have power, and the
yeah,
message that is very clear in your book is that one of the best ways to acquire that power is by bettering yourself and believing in yourself. I think that's also the message that comes out, and ignoring those voices that then become such a deep part of us that we can't even hear what our real voice is telling us that we can do.
yeah. Very
And
true.
and something you talk a lot about the book, which I personally appreciated, and you give good examples here as well from your own life, whether that be personal or professional. You talk a lot about adversity, and you often say that your superpower is that there's nothing you can't overcome, and that adversity holds lessons. And the most important thing is how we respond to failures. And so I'd love it if you could share with our listeners more about how you've done that in your life and how you still do it today.
Sure. It's one of those things that it sounds so easy. I make it sound easy. Oh yeah, if you fail, just pick yourself up and learn from it and move on, and you'll be fine. Um, I quoted Mar- uh, I quoted Nelson Mandela in the book, who said, "I never lose. I win or I learn." And I've had so many encounters in my life that held true. Um, Even growing up, one could say, "Oh, gee, poor Jim, what a victim. It's a shame. He was poor. He was this. His mom left when he was a kid, and blah, blah, blah." It was like, no, actually, it built a kind of resilience in me that I was able to channel into some incredible success. And so I could have said, woe is me. Um, this is a failure. Wasn't my fault. Start blaming everybody around me, or pick up the pieces and say, this is the deck I was dealt. Let me figure it out. And that same pattern followed me through my career. I joined 7-Eleven, and 2 years later, or 4 years later, they filed for bankruptcy. I'm
Yeah.
going, oh man, what a terrible choice, right? I shouldn't have done this. I was with Chevron, major oil company. I could have stayed there. And here's the irony. Had I stayed at Chevron, chances are, not we don't know what history would have proven to be, but I may have muddled around in middle management my whole career and retired, maybe had an okay career. At 7-Eleven, it was the very catastrophic meltdown of the company that gave me opportunities to move up into roles that I probably wouldn't have had in a highly successful enterprise because they took a chance on me. And many people had their head down. I had my head up. Let's go. Come on. And it proved to be an opportunity. I ended up being CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Could I have made that climb, particularly that quickly, in a highly successful organization? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I think the crisis, the
Yeah.
problems that I encountered, the change that I faced ended up being opportunities. So I've coined the expression, change equals opportunity.
Yeah.
CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
It does make sense. And another thing that comes out a lot in the book is your adaptability. And, we could use the word resilience. We could talk about taking risks. But something that I appreciate about you, both as a person and also as the author of this book, is your relentless positivity. And it's contagious. First of all, you're hilarious. I just want to say you're so funny. Like your social media, you're very endearing and very enjoyable to watch, which is not the case on social media most of the time these days. Um, but you do talk a lot in your interviews and in your talks about this positivity. And I want to know how you can stay so positive and spread that positivity, even in times that are like those that we're living right now, which are not necessarily defined by positivity, I would say.
Yeah, I think the easy answer is I'm just weird, right? Yeah, I must be. I've got to be weird to be able to deal with all this crazy stuff. I mean, after all, I was CEO of Blockbuster, right?
Yeah. I
Anyway,
miss Blockbuster.
oh,
I
I
have
know we all do.
very, very good. It's maybe I'm getting old and I'm getting nostalgic, but I have really very wonderful memories of lots of time spent at Blockbuster.
Yeah, I know we all do. I have people all the time come to me. In fact, there's an example of the kind of blessing, right? I could walk around and go, oh man, I was only there. I got there to fix the company. The next year, the financial markets melted down. And for the rest of my life, I have to deal with, some knucklehead who wasn't even alive when Blockbuster was open saying, oh, this is the dummy that turned down Netflix. I mean, stupid stuff like that, right? So I could say, oh, I'm the victim. I'm being picked on by people, et cetera, et cetera. No, 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 no. Here's the opportunity. I have a voice now all over the world that 7-Eleven gave me, the privilege of leading 7-Eleven gave me, but the combination of 7-Eleven and Blockbuster, here are two brands that are so near and dear to everybody's heart that it gives me a voice because people say, oh, I want to hear what this guy had to say. And that gives me an opportunity to help other people in a way that I probably couldn't have, but for the challenges I faced in that Blockbuster environment. So change equals opportunity. I could look at it as a downfall, as a failure, or I could say, wait, no, it was a blessing because it gave me a platform that I'm able to use now all over the world.
Yeah.
So back to I've just gone brain dead now on your original question because I got off on a rabbit trail.
Your relentless positivity.
Oh yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry, I was
It's
gonna get all
fine.
negative. Gonna get all negative on
No,
you.
you weren't.
So, um, here's what I'm learning, and I'm learning again. I'm still learning. So as I'm traveling the world, I'll give you an example. I ran into a neuroscientist, uh, Dr. Haley North in Australia. And she spends her whole day in a lab chopping up pieces of brain, right? So she is like the real deal neuroscientist. And I heard her speak at South by Southwest. And I went up to her afterwards. I said, man, I got to talk to you because this is what I'm telling people, but I'm not a scientist. So help me bring some science to this explanation that confidence is not something you're born with. Confidence is something you build. You can grow. And she goes, all right, so here's the deal. She said, your brain, 86 billion neurons. It's a supercomputer. We're using this tiny little bit of our supercomputer because we don't know how to program it. And we've never been taught. It comes out of the box pre-programmed. And it's pre-programmed with a direct link to this thing called the amygdala in our brain that causes us to not be eaten by a tiger or a lion or stomped by an elephant or burn ourselves in the campfire. It's called fear. But unfortunately, we sometimes don't reprogram that brain to think in different patterns. Because if you think about a computer, it's ones and zeros. It's all about patterns. The computer establishes a pattern. Once it memorizes that pattern, it repeats that pattern. Same thing as our brain. So if we react to fear or we react to negativity in a negative fashion, our brain is wired to just keep repeating that pattern over and over again. And that shows up in our family life. It shows up in bad relationships. It shows up in the boardroom as, fight or flight. And it's like, guys, we don't have a tiger in here. What are you so worked up about? Right? Let's sit down and let's talk it through. Let's turn on the light. Let's bring knowledge to this circumstance. But what she helped me understand is something called neuroplasticity, which means that you can actually rewire your brain. Now, I'll share with you that I freaked out a clergy friend recently because I was going to do a talk in the Catholic community. And I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about Jesus, the neuroscientist. And his eyes got really big. And he said, you can't do that. And I said, no, think about it. What Jesus did is he never actually gave an answer to a question. He would respond with a parable, with a metaphor. And what was he doing? He was making people get out of their normal pre-established brain pattern and with a response that made them think and made them react perhaps in a different way than they otherwise would have. And then with the power of prayer, it could be prayer, it could be meditation. If you think about what prayer is doing, it's reinforcing in your brain a new pattern of thinking. I will not sin. I will not be a bad person. I will have humility. I will have gratitude. And all of that reinforcement, that repetitive thinking is basically stimulating your neuroplasticity and letting you reprogram your own mind to be a different person. Yes, there's a spiritual component to this. There's, the ability to have belief in yourself, et cetera. But you're also reprogramming your brain to not be afraid and to have confidence. Hugely important.
Yeah, it's fundamental. And it comes out in the book a lot. You talk about fear, you talk about the flight response. And I think neuroscience is finally giving us some of these answers. And so we need to then learn how to incorporate them in our daily lives to be whoever we want to be. And,
Right.
And that brings me to my next question, because you do talk to a lot of people. You talk to young people, you talk to business leaders, you talk to a lot of different types of audiences. And I'm curious to know what you say to people who are really stuck or who are really struggling.
I try to reinforce in them, and I'll give you an example. I didn't do this much in the book. I hinted at it a little bit with some reference to Yoda or the alchemist. If you want something badly enough, the universe will conspire to make it happen. And I believe that there is a balance between knowledge and faith and the combination of those two things. And I mean faith in a very agnostic fashion. whether I'm a Catholic or Jewish or, Muslim, it doesn't really matter, in the sense that we all share in common a belief in a greater universe, a greater power. And even someone who perhaps claims to be an atheist still has beliefs, right? And so the question is, can we find the commonality in our ability to channel that faith that something will work out okay? Combine that with the ability to find knowledge, understand what can be understood and what can't be understood, to fall back on our belief that it'll work out. The combination of those two things will help us, for one thing, find truth, because otherwise we just take at face value something and we're not using our knowledge to seek truth. And it will also help us, I think, calm down, calm that negativity that wants to come out in our brain that says you can't do this, or the world is bad, or people are evil, et cetera, and find the positivity inside of you. The irony is, the more positive you are, the more positive you will get back in returns, what I'm finding.
100%. I agree 100%. I'm really glad that you spoke about this. And I'm happy also about the way you expressed this. I think it's a moment where everything is so polarized and everything
Yeah.
feels so divisive. It's important that we really hold near to us those commonalities of which you speak. We've all been afraid. We've
Yeah.
all felt lost at some point, and we need to cling to something. And so if that fear can be overcome through knowledge, if it can be overcome through relentless positivity, but also believing in something greater for ourselves, something bigger
Yeah.
for ourselves. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think it's a message that is getting a little lost right now.
Oh yeah, a lot lost. But let me share something. Someone called me out on this the other day. They said, how do you avoid crossing into toxic positivity? And I was like, oh, I've never heard that before.
Hmm.
Toxic positivity. But here's what that is. Hi, everything's fine. Right? I mean, you can almost feel it. I mean, there are a lot of people that project a lot of positivity, but they're really miserable inside. And so there is a kind of obnoxious, toxic positivity that it's just not real. And so I think the difference is, you can't fake positivity. I mean, you either believe or not. It's either in you or not. And my best example is the Dalai Lama. What you mentioned, I've had the privilege of being around a whole lot of really interesting people, and he was one of them. And he is genuinely, you see him on TV and you go, this guy real? Come on. But when you're in his presence, you are feeling an aura of overwhelming, relentless positivity. And I had the privilege of asking his assistant while he was on stage, I was like, come on, what's up with this dude? Does he really like this? You're around him 24/7. He's got to have his moments, right? And he goes, let me tell you, meditates from 3 a.m. till 8 a.m. every day on gratitude, humility, joy. And he comes out and he's like this all day long. And it's not fake. It's just, it comes from within, and you can feel it. You can feel it.
I mean, and I believe it. And I believe that if you were, that's obviously, a lofty goal, but I think that if you do spread that kind of genuine positivity, then yes, that is the kind of message that then you send to yourself and then ultimately back out into the world. I want to talk about your generosity. I want to talk about your philanthropy. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your Education is Freedom Foundation and the great work that you do.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I didn't start. I started an organization called the Education is Freedom Foundation 25 years ago, not because I was sitting around going, "Gee, I want to be generous." It was a somewhat selfish mood, if you will. I was running 7-Eleven at the time, And we were having trouble hiring employees, store managers. And I said, this is crazy. We've got all this. I mean, it's a $50,000 a year job with upward potential. Why can't we find adequate people with at least an associate's degree to come in here and run this, $2 million business in a store? Excuse me.
Okay.
And so, I really reflected on my own situation and said, well, not surprising if I grew up on the other side of town and I didn't have anything and my parents didn't go to school and they didn't know any better. I would think that wasn't an opportunity for me and that college wasn't for me. And so I said, let's put an organization together. I partnered up with August Bush from Anheuser-Busch, for Stedman Graham, who wrote the foreword of my book, joined me in this initiative. And we created an organization called Education is Freedom with the intention of getting into the schools to help young people understand, here, you can do anything you want. Here's unlimited opportunity. Just apply yourself. Take advantage of the knowledge that you're here for. And it worked. We've had over 500,000 kids in the last 20 years come through this thing. And I mean, we've done a lot of good. But interestingly, Stedman has been saying for 25 years, and his partner Oprah, this is a brand. This is a message that needs to be shared with the world. Don't just do this organization. Get this word out that education is freedom. Hence the book. That's what encouraged me to ultimately write the book. And now, as it's just been a blessing. I'm traveling the world, spreading the message at a time when the world really badly needs to avoid this fear and division that's plaguing us all over the world.
And education is the key because it's the antidote to ignorance.
It is.
And
Absolutely.
that comes out everywhere in your book.
Yeah.
And I want to pivot a little and talk about the elephant in the room that is AI. It's everywhere. You talk about technology and education as being important allies. I agree 100%. Yet I don't think we can ignore the constant barrage of information we're getting today about how AI will ruin us. It is taking away jobs. It is leading to brain rot. It is making us less creative. It is making us not know how to think. Our young people are doomed. Talk to me about what your read on this whole revolution, because I would call it a revolution. What's your read on it, Jim?
Good word. Revolution. Yeah. I'm going to take you through history, give you a little history lesson.
I love it.
The last time humanity faced this onslaught of information, explosion, invention of the modern printing press. Shortly thereafter, American Revolution, French Revolution, Protestant Reformation, church comes apart and goes into all these different pieces and parts. There was a tremendous amount of upheaval at the time. Some people embraced the information. Other people feared the information. There was a time when teachers refused to let books in the classroom because they didn't want to turn that child loose with this book. Lord knows what they might learn in that thing, right?
Yeah.
Fear. It was fear. And whenever there's change, the human brain reverts back to its prepackaged condition programming. Oh man, I'm afraid of that new change. It's scary. Oh, those machines could eat us. They could kill us all. Humanity's doomed, right?
Yeah.
We've been through this. Society's been through this. The internet was going to take away all our jobs. I'm a retailer, right? 7-Eleven, Amazon's going to crush you. 7-Eleven's doubled its size since Amazon came in the market. Here's one of my favorite examples. This is what's exciting about AI. But just go back to modern history. We all remember when the internet was launched and we all said, oh, it's going to take away jobs. But if we were sitting there 20 years ago and I said to you, you're going to call up a stranger on your phone and they're going to come pick you up in their car. They're going to take you to another stranger's house on the other side of town, and you're going to sleep in that stranger's bed. And you're going to pay for this happily with no fear. You'd be like, that is the dumbest, craziest idea that I have ever heard anybody say. I would never do that. And now you pick up the phone and you call Uber, you stay in an Airbnb, you don't bat an eyelash. These are entirely new industries that were created by the internet. So here's what's going to happen. There's two things that can happen with AI. Humanity can reject AI, or nations can reject AI, and we can not allow technology to advance the human race as it potentially has the opportunity to do. Or we can embrace AI. Now, here's the embrace AI scenario. Machines can teach machines, we've learned, exponentially better than humans can program the machine. Why? Because it's an iterative process. It happens just like this. It delivers information the way the machine will best learn that information. Now, if you apply that same logic to human learning, we've been teaching humans the same way for 1,000 years. One-on-one, ABCs, multiplication tables, etc. Well, just perhaps the machine can teach a human in a way that the human best receives that information and can tailor that delivery of content based on the way the human is best absorbing it. And the machine will know. And it can potentially elevate human learning in an exponential fashion like humanity has never seen before. Now, think about the possibilities. If we only use this much of our brain today, could we use this much of our brain instead? And here's another shocking statistic for you. America today, 4th grade, government statistics measured 4th grade literacy, reading proficiency. 31% of our students are proficient at the 4th grade level. 31%. Now that's shocking. This is America. I mean, we've got a whole host of issues with broken families and teachers and language issues with first generation. There's a whole host of reasons for that. But literacy is infinitely fixable. A country like Malawi has made a decision they're going to give tablets to every child in the country with an AI tutor so they have 100% literacy. What if we did this all over the world? Because if you can cure illiteracy and give people an opportunity to have a better life, can we cure or significantly reduce poverty, crime, terrorism, fear, et cetera, et cetera? So bottom line, AI is either our worst nightmare or our best hope for humanity. I'm going to channel my relentless positivity and say, if we embrace it, we can elevate humanity in a way we've never seen before.
Yeah, I was thinking about your relentless positivity because most people don't speak about AI in glowingly positive terms. And I'm happy that you spun it the way you did, because we need to be thinking about how to resolve these issues, education, societal, what have you. And if we use AI intelligently and we're not fearful, then we can really empower our next generation. We can cure diseases. I think what you said about the Malawi case, and also just specifically the idea that AI can be so tailor-made and can really help people and we all learn differently, you know?
Yeah.
And something like literacy it's the bare minimum. And, we can eradicate illiteracy with the help of AI. So I'm grateful that you chose to continue to be positive also about something like AI, because people are afraid. They are absolutely afraid.
They are.
So thank you.
I did an interview yesterday with a very, very an amazing woman on stage. She has 3 children, and we were talking about education, and I shared this idea. I'm pushing the U.S. administration to come up with an operating system because we have 13,000 independent school districts, all making their own decisions on what ed tech tools, if any, they're going to use. And it's chaos out there. And it's
Yeah.
impossible to scale something that works. So what I'm suggesting is create the infrastructure, create like when iOS came up with, the ability to provide interoperability and security and privacy in one, portal. I'm encouraging the government to do that for all students, to have a student portal, a teacher portal, even a parent portal. Now everything's transparent, everything's there, everything's available to the student to learn. I got off stage and I was having a chat with the moderator, and she said, "Love you, Jim. Love you. Love everything you got to say, but over my dead body, will anything like that ever happen?" I mean, not as aggressively as that, but she was like, "I don't want my kids on these devices. I don't want them on any device. I want them reading a book." And I understand. I understand the fear, and I understand the resistance to the digital world. But that black or white, is not going to give us the chance to elevate humanity. That's that fear that kicks in without giving us a chance to use that technology. So what I tried to do to talk her off the ledge, I said, look, what if, and there's a school in Texas that's now spreading pretty quickly. It's called Alpha School. They use AI tutors for 2 hours a day. Very intense learning that allows the child to level up at their own pace. And these kids then for the rest of the day have that student-teacher interaction. So the student gets much more hands-on, work with their peers and with their teacher, but they also get the intensity of aggressive technology use and training. The results have been off the charts. They're doing some great things. So we haven't cracked the code yet on what the right formula is, but I do believe strongly in the power of technology to transform the way we teach and learn.
I love this example that you just gave. And, I have to say, between our kids not reading at all, because that's a huge issue right now,
Yeah.
And finding the ways to break into those or break down those barriers, it's just, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think, again, we're getting there, but there is a lot of resistance. There's a lot of resistance.
When we're fighting over the wrong things.
I know.
It's comical. I remember as a kid growing up and hearing the debates over Catcher in the Rye, right? And oh no, you can't let the kids read that. And I remember that was a couple of years ago when I was a child. And here's the debate back again. And I'm sitting here going, wait, with 31, only 31% functional literacy in the 4th grade in America, shouldn't we be spending as much energy on, at least as much energy on, let's get the kids in the library, let's give them the ability to read before we worry about what they're reading? Yeah. Anyway, it's just an example of sometimes we get caught up in the fight caused by the fear, and we're missing the opportunity as a result.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this work. I mean, and I am happy to know that you're one of the people who's really crusading to improve the way our young people learn, because the tools are there. It makes no sense not to use them. I want to ask you a not easy question.
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. Does the American dream still exist? I mean, you're a product of the American dream.
Absolutely. Why is that a hard question?
I don't know. I think today it's a problematic question, let's say.
No, it's not.
No?
Here's what it is. It's this negativity and victimhood that's crept into the American society. And it's kind of happening all over the world, but especially in America. Since when are we victims? Right? I mean, step back from this. Forget about the perceptions of the American dream is dead, because that's what we hear. They just did a poll. And about 20 years ago, about 70% of America said, yeah, the American dream, we're proud of it. And now it's like 30% of America thinks the American dream is still alive. That is the biggest bunch of bull crap ever. Because here's the deal. American dream isn't about entitlement. It's not about someone's going to hand me the American dream. It's about you having the drive and the desire to say, look, I was born in America. Even if I was born in a poor family, that is such a huge head start over where I could have been born. Now, what am I going to do with this? And if you think about the tools, I grew up with a set of borrowed encyclopedias. A kid now has a portal to unlimited learning. Tell me the American dream is dead. I can go be an entrepreneur. I can go to college. And yes, it's expensive. You know what? Get over it. It was expensive when I was a kid. Everybody's like, I mean, and I know you have a daughter.
I do.
Looking at schools right now. Holy Cross, where I went undergraduate. I don't know what it is, $70,000, $80,000 a year.
About that.
Staggering, right? It was only $10,000 when I went. But let's do the math. This is really an important comparison, especially for a mom. When I went, that $10,000 in $25, you know how much it is? Guess.
How much? I'm not good at math.
50. So I was making $1.25 an hour at McDonald's, and I had to pay for a $10,000 tuition. And now they're making $10 an hour. So, okay. Yeah. No one's doing the math. So 50. Now then you say, okay, but 50 versus 80. It was still more than when you went to school. I sat on the board there, or sat on the board there. Their discount rate, in other words, what someone really pays.
Yeah.
It's like you go to Walmart and 50% of their stuff is on sale. You're not really paying the full retail price. Well, their discount rate is close to 50%. That means really the average student's paying $40,000. Okay, now that's less than when I went to school. Now, then there were not scholarship availability anywhere near when I went to school. I mean, I had a couple grand here, a couple grand there, maybe. Today, the availability of scholarships worldwide are mind-boggling. There is zero excuse today for a child not to go to college. And if all else fails, there are 35 cities in the United States that offer free community college.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
yeah,
is it more expensive today than it was? No, it's really not. But there's a negative narrative out there. And when you tell a kid, yeah, school's way more expensive than when I went to school, it gives them a reason not to go. And that's what we have to fight, that negative.
And it brings me to my next question, but I wanted to comment first on what you said, because here again, it's lack of knowledge that prevents people from doing things, because colleges now, a lot of schools, in addition to the, whatever funding that might be available, so you don't have to, have student loans, et cetera. But if your family income is below a certain threshold, you might very well get a free ride. And so, but I wanted to ask you to chime in. You already kind of started, because there is a hot debate in the States, especially right now, about the value of a college education. And a lot of that narrative, I know. Yeah, you and I know we're on the same page here. Yeah. But a lot of that narrative is, well, is it worth it? I mean, is it worth the investment? And I would like to hear, I mean, I think I know your take on it, but also what advice you do give. You speak a lot to young people. And I'd like to know what advice you give them, because I'm sure this question comes up.
Yeah. Couple things. Number one, let me just give you the math. The internal rate of return. I'm a business guy, right? I make investments all the time. I never make an investment based on the current cash flow opportunity. So someone looks at college and they go, it's a $200,000 investment in myself, right? Well, as a business person, you have to look at the discounted cash flow of future income streams. Now, that $200,000 will pay a dividend over not going to college for the rest of your life. If you just do the math, on average, it is measured to be about a 15% internal rate of return. That's a very good business decision. So just the math. And from a business perspective, invest in yourself because it pays dividends for the rest of your life. That's step one. Step two, life expectancy. You want to live? The average, and this sounds crazy, the average measurable life expectancy, college versus no college, 8 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
absolutely. But why is that? Because without college, let's face it, you're facing occupational hazards, difficult industry, working conditions, lack of health care, and on and on and on and on. And there is literally a life expectancy. So, I mean, you make the choice. Make 15% internal rate of return. It's a damn good investment. I'm going to live longer. Why wouldn't I go to college again? All right. Now, let me give you one more. Cut through all that stuff. Just practical. All right. I'm a product. I'm on the shelf. I'm an employee. Just like a box of Cheerios versus Fruit Loops, right? What's inside counts. And what's inside comes down to your credentials. What's written on the box, right? What are the ingredients in there? Do you want to compete for a job? Because as a product, I'm competing with other products, other people. We're in an AI world where there are fewer jobs, let's say. Do I want to compete when someone picks up my box and looks at the ingredients and it's got no college? Or against somebody that says college, master's degree, et cetera, really good school, certified check of approval? I'm going to have to compete against that. It's going to be hard enough to compete. Do I want to compete with one or two hands tied behind my back against everybody else out there that's competing for the same job? Of course not. Now, is that fair? Maybe not, but it comes back to, what do you want? Do you want to sit around and whine about it and complain that the college kids had an advantage? Or do you want to get your butt into college? That's what I tell the young people today.
And it's a really important message for them to get. And I'm also glad that you mentioned community college, because community colleges have been getting a lot of attention because they really are a great option for people as a bridge then to a BA, et cetera. And so I appreciate you're spinning the narrative, because we've been hearing, I can't take it anymore. It's all, as somebody who really dedicated my life to education, to higher education, I see so much value in it. That it drives me insane. So thank you for clarifying that.
You know what it is? It's like Michael Jordan saying, just go play basketball. You'll be fine. And that's what I hear when I hear a Peter Thiel or a Elon Musk telling kids, you don't need a degree, just go be an entrepreneur. Well, some of us are cut out for that, but the vast majority of us need structure, discipline, the organization that comes from a formal education. I mean, we're not all entrepreneurs. No. Can be, but don't think that it's an easy path either. I mean, we talk about work-life balance, and entrepreneurs 24/7. You think college is hard? Being an entrepreneur is way harder if you're going to be successful at it.
Exactly. No, college is the best. So we've come to our last question, because I could talk to you all day, but I know how busy you are and I don't want to take up your time, but it is related. I mean, you are one of the things I love so much about you is that you are unapologetically a lifelong learner. and you want to learn something and you just do it. You wanted to learn Japanese and you read it. You wanted to compose music, you learned how to compose music. You really do everything. You're in evolution. So I want to know, and you can talk about the Vatican now if you want, what is next for you, Jim?
Simple answer. I don't know. And it sounds crazy. Like everybody says, well, didn't you have this master plan? No, because every day is a new opportunity and a new adventure. And I keep stumbling on new things. So yes, one of the things I'm doing is to work with uh, the Vatican to help use technology in a way that helps other people. So I made the example of AI and its impact on human learning, right? So if you step back from this and you look at Pope John Paul, 1998, had a piece called Fide e Ratio. Fide e Ratio is faith and reason, knowledge and faith. That's what I've been talking about. I discovered this encyclical and I was like really excited because I was going, wow, here's a pope that's reinforcing what I've been saying about you've got to have this balance. Learn as much as you can about any given topic, but then there will be things that you don't know. What do you do then? Well, that's when you fall back on your faith, right? So that balance, he described it as two wings that elevate the human spirit to seek truth. As a pilot, I just love that because if one wing is stronger than the other, if you've got an engine out causing drag in one wing, you're going to either fly around in circles or crash. And that's the case with this balance between faith and reason. They have to be in balance for you to truly seek truth. So I love that piece. Well, on the AI side, we have the opportunity to use it to find even more knowledge, to gain even more knowledge, as we described. But what about that faith side? How does AI impact and technology impact faith? Well, here's how. You've seen the Van Gogh immersion experiences?
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? There's a place in London called Frameless that uses the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt. It's in a full room. And here is this boat with Jesus and the disciples on it being tossed on the Sea of Galilee. When you're in that room, you feel like you're on that boat. I mean, the waves are crashing all around you. It's breathtaking. That's what I want to bring to sacred art because the opportunity with the billions of dollars worth of art sitting in the Vatican Art Museum that people never get to see, or the beauty of the Sistine Chapel that's sitting in Rome. And unless you travel to Rome, you never really get the full experience of being in the Sistine Chapel. Well, we can take virtually the Sistine Chapel, reproduce it anywhere in the world, and allow people that couldn't afford to go to Rome to feel like they're standing in the Sistine Chapel. But then we can use AI technology to make each panel, which is basically the history of man, Noah and Genesis and all of the books are laid out there. We can make each panel come to life, just as AI took that Sea of Galilee and made it real. What does this do? To me, it helps tell the story of Christianity and humanity, but it also is an evangelization tool that I'll compare to the modern stained glass. We've been doing this for 2,000 years with stained glass windows. It was the art at the time that inspired people. And then the great masters were inspired by their faith to create great art. Now we can make that great art come to life in a way that humans have never experienced, just like the Van Gogh immersion experience. But that's just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible. So that's where I get excited because this combination, if you use technology to elevate human learning and elevate the human ability to have faith, I mean, now we've got a double suit of armor against fear, and we can accomplish anything. I mean, humanity can enjoy all of the things we've wanted throughout history, peace, prosperity, love, hope, is all within reach now. We're on the cusp of a change in humanity that's really exciting. So I just want to be a proponent for that.
I can't think of a better way to end this podcast. It's been a beautiful conversation. It's been illuminating. It's filled me with hope. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck with all the work you're doing, with your wonderful book, which everyone should read. It's incredibly valuable for us all right now. And I want you to come back. I think maybe you should just come to Florence and we can do this in person in front of an audience. And I'll just look forward to having you here, or we could do it in Rome too. That's fine. We can do it in Rome.
Florence works. You may not. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I actually studied at the Florence Academy of Art.
You did not mention that.
I did. I had a unique opportunity to go there for a very abbreviated. Usually, it's a 3-year term that they accept, but they allowed me in. And I did a very abbreviated session with sculpture, drawing, and plein air realism painting.
You are a Renaissance man, and you're a humanist, Jim. You are a humanist, and so you really embody all of the things that are so important, not only to me, but I think to all of us right now. We need to remember these things. So I thank you for coming on today. And I really thank you for reminding us of what's really important, and also how unlimited the possibilities are, and that we just need to, not lose our hope, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Relentless positivity.
Relentless positivity. Thank you for this.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.